Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 371 of A Yank on the Footy. I'm Craig Wessels coming to you from snowy Sandusky, Ohio. I appreciate you giving this episode a listen. In just a moment, I am going to be joined by Michaels and CB17 of the Richmond Tigercast podcast as we preview the Richmond Tigers for 2025. And I can tell you, I'm recording this introduction after our discussion. We had a hell of a lot of fun. These guys are a riot. They are such great fans and supporters of their club and are just passionate about it. And their glass is half full and filling with all of the additions of that club for this year. Now, folks, don't forget that you can find everything about my podcast over at my website, ayankonthefooty.com. I do hope you'll head over there and get subscribed on the mailing list. I hope you'll follow the links to follow me on my socials as well, at Yank underscore on X or Yank on the Footy podcast on Facebook, a Yank on the Footy on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn as well. You can also find the podcast over on YouTube. Just look for a Yank on the Footy. Actually, it might be my name, Craig Wessels. I think it's my name on there. I need to change that. I think it's one of the two, but there will be a link to that in the show notes as well. Also, the episodes are going up on Rumble as well. If you'd like to get in on the ground floor of those as they're going in. And folks, this is a very, very necessary discussion that we're going to be having here. It is the 8th of February at about 8 o'clock in the evening, and about 14 hours ago, before we jump into the discussion here, and I will not spend a great deal of time on this. My wife and I, and our kids, when they were still living at home, we have two Wheaton Terriers. One of them is almost 17 years old, and the other one turned 10 back in November. Both of them are rescues. And our 10-year-old, as many of you know, my wife has been battling cancer, and she finishes up her last two radiation treatments on Monday and Tuesday, the 10th and 11th of February. So she's done with radiation. She's crushed it. I'm so damn proud of her. She's got a few chemo treatments left, and she's going to crush those as well. But our younger Wheaton also had been diagnosed with either prostate or colon cancer. And he took a very serious turn for the worse. He just had been dropping weight, a lot of weight. He had not been in pain. He just had been struggling to use the backyard for its purposes. But he took a very difficult left turn health-wise on Friday evening, and we had made the decision that we were going to be going to the veterinarian's office today because this was not going to be improving, and we did not want him in any more pain. Well, last night I went to bed at about 1 a.m. local time. It had been a long day, and he was sleeping on the floor just outside the bedroom, which he does a lot. His breathing was a little ragged, a little rough, but he was still plugging along. I gave him a kiss. I petted him. I spoke to him a little bit. He was really having a struggling time moving, but this was going to be it for him. I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning to use the restroom, and he was gone. And so he decided, I'm not making another damn trip to the veterinarian's office so they can poke and prod me. So, Chewy, you were one heck of a great dog, buddy. You saved my life because you were my walking partner. You helped me get in shape. You helped me stay in shape, although the last few months I've kind of fallen off the wagon and have eaten some things that I probably shouldn't have been eating and have gained back a couple of kilos, maybe about 5 or 8 kilos or so, which I need to lose again, but I'm still down about 65 to 70 kilos overall over the last 3 years. So, Chewy, you helped do that. And I'm going to miss you, buddy. You were a great, great dog. And folks, without any further ado, and without being too much of a downer, let's jump into my chat with Michaels and CB17 from the BigFooty Tigercast. And we're going to talk all things Richmond. And I think you're going to have a few laughs as well. So enjoy. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back for our next preview for 2025, and I have two new guests to the podcast this year from the BigFooty Tigercast. I am thrilled to be welcoming CB17 and Michaels. Gentlemen, thanks for coming on today, and I truly, truly appreciate you taking time out of your day. This is exactly what I need to be doing right now.
No worries
Our
at all.
pleasure.
Thanks for having us on. Appreciate
You
you
bet.
reaching out.
You bet, man. It's absolutely my pleasure. I'm a massive fan of this game. As we mentioned off air, I'm a lifelong Cleveland Browns fan, and I really only watch them anymore as somebody would watching a police officer issuing a traffic citation to see if you know the person that's getting the ticket anymore. And it's really I'll watch them. I'll watch a couple different college football teams play occasionally, but that's the only American sport I watch. I watch footy and I watch cricket. And I
Nice.
started
Oh,
watching
cricket as
cricket over the
well.
I watched cricket
Hey.
started watching that over the last couple of years. In fact, I have my Cricket for Dummies.
Oh,
Hey.
nice. There we go.
Actually had one of the authors, Tom Dunmore, on the podcast last year or the year before. But yeah, I absolutely love the game. I fell in love with it back in 2016, and I think it's the greatest game on the planet. And as you guys mentioned off air, you guys, took the competition behind the woodshed for this better part of 4 years to get rid of 37 years of frustration. And I have to
Yeah.
ask, before we dive into 2025, how good did that 4 year period of time feel after having coming kind of coming out of the desert, if you will?
Well, I'm older than Michael's. I'm getting to the stage where if you cut my leg in half, you can count the rings on age.
Yeah.
So I lived. It was more, as we said off air, it was more the relief of we thought maybe in our lifetime we would never see one,
Uh-huh.
and all of a sudden you get one, and all of a sudden you're blessed with 3 out of 4, and you're going, my goodness, how good is life? Your cup's pretty full, so to
Yeah.
speak. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
no, it was wonderful.
And it
Michael.
just came from out of nowhere as well. Like 2016 wasn't that great of a year. Well documented that a few players, I think Cochrane and Dimmer and Jack even thought about parting ways at some various point in time. But to then go on to have a few years like that where you were literally rocking up to games feeling so good about it, just wondering by how much. It was quite bizarre. And, even if 2017 was the only one, I would have been extremely happy with that. But yeah, as
Uh-huh.
CB said, to get the other two as well. And 2018, obviously a bit of a blip on the radar, but some would argue that if we didn't have that stumble in 2018, maybe the other two didn't happen. So sometimes things maybe happen for a reason. But yeah, it was unbelievable. The only
Yeah.
worst part about it for me is like I obviously waited 35, 36 years to see a flag. My
Right.
son was born in the first year and he was at the grand final. So he saw one in his like first year of life. I'm like, how is that fair that I've waited that long and here he is just sitting on my lap with
Well,
the G and he's
well,
seen one?
True,
but
true story. So
here's the thing though. He won't remember it though.
No, he won't.
Yeah.
No, which
Yeah.
is good.
so, so true story. When my kids were, so they're 18 and 20 now. They're turning 19 and 21 this year.
Hmm.
When I first started taking them to the football, when we were rebuilding and we were diabolical, we basically used to lie to them. They had no idea of the score, and we're like, "Oh yeah, we're going okay." No, we weren't. We were terrible. But
Yeah.
hey, they can thank me later now. They're
Yeah.
welcome.
That's a yes. So they got the, and I don't know. Do they, does the MCG and Marvel? There's some baseball stadiums like the Cleveland baseball stadium where the used to be the Indians, now they're the Guardians. They had like a playground for little kids who, were parents. If kids are not wanting to pay attention to the game, the parents could take them there. My kids always wanted to go to the playground and go play. So there are a lot of times I take them to the game. I didn't see much of the game. But now, I mean, I've not watched any baseball in 6 years, but do they have anything like that there? So if they became disinterested during the course of the game, it's like sit down, deal with it. It's kind of the hard nosed Aussie thing to do is that we're here to watch footy. You're going to watch footy. You're not going to go on the slide or the swings. You can do that at the park when the game's over.
Well, it's a funny thing with football. Parents don't give their kids options on who to support. We tell them, and
Yeah.
we drag them through. So Michael's lives in Melbourne. I live in regional Victoria.
Okay.
So I've got about an hour and a half, 2 hour drive home, depending on traffic. And I can't tell you the amount of white knuckle drive homes as I'm gripping that steering wheel, not talking to anybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've had a few moments.
So do you
The
do you have
play,
to
yeah,
do you have to cross Melbourne, or are you heading west after the games?
I'm in the eastern side of Victoria.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
the playground's not actually not a bad idea because I'm going with a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old, and then sometimes we'll take a 1-year-old. The attention span's just not fully there yet for the middle one and the youngest, obviously. The 6-year-old's getting better with watching it, but like I pretty much will only take him though if I know I'll have other family there, because if it was just like me, my wife, and the kids, it would be a nightmare. I would get frustrated because I just like to zone in and watch the game. But having other family that you can sort of just pass them around, and they like seeing the flags being waved, which didn't happen a hell of a lot last year for us, it must be said. But I know the MCG, they do have like a live site at the front of the ground before the game where they've got like inflatable things where you can kick goals and got handball targets. So they've got little activations for kids pre-game. But yeah, definitely nothing during the game. That's actually a really good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know if there would be room in the concourses or something like that to plug something in there for games.
And where the MCG is, our spiritual home, actual Hunt Road right is next to the MCG.
Yeah.
So in the VFL games, the kids are allowed to go onto the field at halftime. Yeah, this is the second tier level of Australian rules football, and they can still have a kick of the football on the ground and get out there and hop the fence, and it's a wonderful experience. It's great.
Yeah. I can only imagine that they used to do like the run the bases thing at the games here. You know, that after the game, the kids could go onto the field on one side, run around the bases, and then exit on the other side. And you'd have to you'd have to go and move back over there to catch them on the other side of it as they were running around there. But you talked about how this past year was somewhat painful. Now I first of all, I guess before we even get into that, how did you guys connect to start your show? How did this come about?
So in 2017, we started. So it was part of BigFooty is like an AFL footy forum website. Yep. So there's all different types of boards, including Club One. So then the moderators of the Richmond board put out a post saying we're looking to start up a podcast, kind of at the instruction of the owners of the site who were wanting to get podcasts started. Would anyone be keen on hosting? Would anyone be keen on jumping on as a guest? And I was watching the thread, and a lot of people were jumping in saying, "Oh, I'd love to come on as a guest, but I don't think I could host." And that was the general theme. And I don't know, I just sat there, I thought, I'll probably back myself in to be able to host it. I'm not sure technology-wise if I've got the right stuff to upload or whatever, but they said they'll help out with all of that. Because I've done some coaching and DJing and stuff. So like public speaking wise and speaking in front of a camera I didn't feel was too much of an issue. And the actual first 2 or 3 years, we actually had rotating guests. So I would reach out to all different posters on BigFooty from Richmond or other clubs, and we'd have new people every week. And that was kind of getting a little bit hard to manage because people might pull out last minute, and you didn't know what you were getting with each episode. And to be fair to everyone who came on, they were all very, very good. But you didn't know if they were going to give 1 or 2 word answers, if they were going to go into detail. So as we kind of grew, it made more sense to get a settled lineup. And along the journey in those first few years, CB had been on, Grok, who's another one of the guys, had been on, and Tiger17, and Elton John's wig. So they'd all rotated through at various stages.
Elton John's wig.
EJ.
Okay.
And just when I was just going back and looking at feedback and things like that, we seemed to have the most positive feedback whenever that group of people were on the show. And we just had a pretty good connection. We just kind of bounced off each other. And I just felt it made sense to try and keep those guys on a more permanent basis. So we've got, a roster of 5, and some of the guys have got work and other commitments on the nights that we do the show. And it's just whoever can turn up, turns up, and away we go.
Okay.
And Michael's understands that. So I'm actually president of a cricket club. So I have a fair chunk of commitment with cricket, running a club, recruiting, and the whole gamut. So for me, it's not always easy to juggle time to commit. But the flip side is too, and Michael's will probably validate this. So the show started off as a conversation. We talk footy, but then the Australian football media turned so toxic and bad. And particularly we felt, and the supporters of Richmond felt that we were getting a really, really raw deal on how we were portrayed in the media, how they were writing about us. You talked earlier about, the long suffering, and some of the articles were just pure garbage and lies. And so what we thought, well, hang on. If you're going to be, and I won't name them so I don't want to get sued, but there are certain AFL journos who the Richmond supporters will know, they will make, because of who we know in the club, we know it was made up lies.
Yeah.
And So the flip side was we're going, well, let's make this a let's make this a real hub for Richmond supporters to get Richmond information and
Yeah.
talk Richmond things without fear of being mocked by absolute morons.
Yeah. And
Fair, Michaels?
Very
that's fair.
fair.
Yeah.
Very
I
fair.
mean, and that's what, with mine, my shows, they're always grounded in the game, in footy. But, I will, and I've said this in a number of episodes, I will never be so bold as to say that I know more about this game than somebody who's been following it for 30 or 40 years. I'm not going to do that. I just can't have kind of a unique vantage point of the game. But a lot of my interviews, there'll be the kernel in the middle of it, like the kernel of the inside of the nut will be about footy, but then it ends up, so many other aspects of the person's life, from people who are, you know, um, that are involved in local footy. I mean, I had president, a player from a club a few years ago from South Australia that their club had lost 104 games in a row, and
Wow.
somebody had burned down their clubhouse at their facility, and they just had moved into their new facility, and it's just the perseverance and that sort of thing, and just the personal stories that I love to tell those, because again, one of the things I'm
Yeah.
trying to do is I'm trying to encourage people here to check out your game, because I my
Yeah.
my my thesis is, if we can get 1% of the United States interested in your game,
Yeah. Well,
that's the population of Australia. If we can get
right.
1% of this country interested in your game, and I'm thinking, I'm saying, think about like the international memberships, tourism, merchandising, um, you know, and the AFL does a terrible job of marketing the game here.
No.
Terrible, terrible.
So,
For yeah.
so question for you: have you
Yeah,
actually been to Australia to watch a game yet in the
I have
flesh?
not. I have not. That was supposed to happen last summer, as I'd mentioned, and it was going to be happening this year. I was going to get to see the Cats play 3 times down in Geelong and once at Marvel against. In fact, I was going to be sitting with Barry Cheatley for the Roos 125th anniversary game against Geelong at Marvel
Oh,
Stadium. I think it was round 21, I believe, and and he passed. He passed away. But and then with my wife's illness, I'm pushing it back another year. So,
yeah.
um, yeah. But
Did you
someday I'll get
did
there.
you
Yeah.
notice did you notice a big difference in viewership in the States during COVID? Because I know, like, when a lot of your sports shut down, we
Well,
were kind of still playing, but with no one in the crowds. And you saw like the Pat McAfee show and things like
yeah.
that started to
Yeah.
really pick up on Aussie rules.
I managed to get blocked, and I still don't know how it happened, by Pat McAfee's show on Twitter. I don't know how it happened. The only thing I can the only
Jesus.
thing the only thing I can think is that happened was I may have said something to the fact, and I haven't gone back to look to see the tweets or anything like that from years ago, but you know footy was the only live game in town for several months. So
Yeah.
he embraced it. He was a punter. Which a lot of the Aussie kids are coming over, and they're punters now in college football and in
Yeah.
the NFL. But once the American sports came back, well, I think he was excited to talk about footy. I think the sponsors of the NBA and Major League Baseball and such whispered in his ear, "Talk about our games, dumbass. Don't talk about theirs." And he just dropped it like a
Okay.
hot. He just dropped it like a hot potato, and really never spoke of it again. And I kind of called it out, because it's I think that's probably how I got blocked. Which I guess I'll wear that as a badge of honor.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's I don't I didn't it wasn't malicious. I just questioned his business overlords that were in his ear telling him don't pay any attention to this anymore. But it's the games here are on, overnight. So you'll have games that'll be on here from anywhere, but at least on the East Coast of the United States, from like 11 o'clock at night all the way through, starting at like 5:30 the following morning. Um,
Yeah. Okay.
so I mean, and there are those of us who love the game. We're up for our clubs. I mean, if the Cats are playing, for example, at a 2:30 in the morning start, I'm up at 2:30 in the morning to watch the game. Now, I may,
Nice.
I may, I may be up to watch another one here or there live, but I mean, I'll watch. We lost him. Um, but I'll watch. I try to watch all 9 games each round. I really do. Um,
Well, it's like that's the equivalent of being an EPL English Premier League soccer fan for Australians.
Right,
So
right.
yeah, the games start late, and then you got
Yeah,
2:30 in the morning, and,
yeah,
and the fans who love the code,
yeah,
that's what they
yeah.
do.
And I'm not a soccer fan at all. I mean, this is I love footy, and I loved watching the women's game, but I'll be honest, I kind of fell into watching cricket so much that last year I didn't see a single AFLW game because I was watching so much cricket during that time period. And I remember my wife was watching one of the games before the Major League Baseball World Series. It was like the round before that, and he she was in watching that game on the television in the bedroom, and I was out in the family room watching Bangladesh and Nepal playing cricket. So I mean, I think I've definitely fallen into the whole cricket. Um, uh, you know, I'm definitely a
Yeah.
fan of cricket. So I mean, but it's
So
it's pretty
so
much
I'm a
all I
test
watch.
match. So I don't. So the shorter formats from there. Test cricket is where it's at, and I'll give you the basic premise that you need to understand at all times of cricket. Two batsmen, 11 fielders. So at
Yep.
any stage of the game, it's 2v11,
Yeah.
and it's pretty brutal.
Yep.
It can
Yeah.
be
I know.
brutal.
I know. Well, and I started watching cricket backwards because I started watching T20 first.
Yeah, yeah.
And and I was a bigger baseball fan than anything. So that I kind of gravitated towards that initially because I started watching some Test cricket, um, and it's a completely different game. The batters are so much more defensive in Test cricket. I
Well,
think, in
well,
terms
you
of
think you play baseball, you get 3 shots at it.
right,
You
right,
play Australian rule football, you make a mistake, you got 2 hours to get it back.
right,
Tennis,
right.
you got 5 sets to get it back.
Yep.
Cricket, you can do everything right, and your day is done in one moment. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
psychologically a very, very tough sport.
yep,
People need to understand that. But
yeah.
so I'm trying to get back. I've been to America once,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm hoping to get back in the next year or so.
Okay.
And one of my things is I've got to get to a baseball game if I can get there. I've got to.
Yeah.
Everyone who tells me goes, they swear by the baseball game. They say it's a wonderful experience. So I'm really keen to get over there. And it's either going to be Nashville or Texas will probably be the two spots I'm
Well,
looking at.
Nashville
But
does not have a Major League Baseball team,
no,
so
no, that's right. So
you
if I
you
can
got
space it out and do a trip
you
through, I
got
don't. Yeah,
Houston has a team, and the Dallas area has a team in
yeah,
Arlington, which is
that's right.
right nearby.
Houston.
Yeah, yeah, the
So,
Astros. Yeah.
so I've got to say, and I've got a bit of a fascination with American history, like the Civil War and things like that. So
Okay.
I find America a very wonderful, unique, diverse place, and it's just from coast to coast and up north to south. It's just
Yeah.
everything in
Well,
between is just amazing, remarkable.
I have a podcast. I have a podcast. I'll share a link with you then for if you're into the Civil War because there's a really good one called 1865, which I think you
You
would
ready?
really like. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
phenomenal. It's phenomenal.
yeah.
Yeah. So we need to talk about your Tigers in 2025, and
I tried to distract him, Michaels. I tried to distract him.
I know you did, but I will say I do I do have the Swans one starting in about 90 minutes. So I mean we'll have to we're gonna
All good.
yeah. So we're and that's actually one of the teams that I think could slide out of the 8 this year.
Agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair
I'm
call.
I'm and I've said it on several episodes, and maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm crazy, but I think this year's Hawthorn might be North Melbourne.
Uh,
Oh, I hope not.
I
Because
know
we got their draft
you got him
pick.
twice. Yeah, okay. Yeah, yeah, it's true. Yeah. Yeah.
North's
I
North's
just
interesting with Clarkson. If they don't fire this year,
yeah.
he's had 4 years, a lot of high end draft picks.
Right, right.
There might be a little bit of a Bunsen burner applied to the belly there.
Yeah.
They've got some good
Yeah.
recruits this year, though. I think they're on a natural progression as well.
Yeah. Same with
Um,
Adelaide.
we're just hopeful that they don't do it this year, just for
Right,
a completely selfish reason. But
Yeah,
yeah.
I get that. Absolutely. Yeah. So, you
So
know,
Sydney, can I say Sydney should slide out of the 8 on principle for crimes against grand final performances. They need to get out.
hey, you know what? I didn't mind that grand final a few years ago. Okay.
yeah.
This one right here, I was completely okay with this one right here. That
Yeah.
one worked out just fine for me. Okay. I don't, I've had, like I said, the Cleveland football team last won a championship in 1964. The baseball team, 1948, when my mom was 6. The basketball
Yeah.
team with LeBron in 2016. I'm not a big basketball fan, so I've gone through, you know, let's see, I'm 61 years old, so 183 seasons of, well, not even that many, about 175 seasons of Cleveland sports teams, and they've won 2 championships combined.
Yeah, right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
So you would have enjoyed 2022. That's fair enough.
yeah, I really enjoyed 2022. In fact, yeah, it was a lot of fun. So, last year was it was necessary. You guys, you'd seen what West Coast had done. You'd, in a way, you'd seen kind of what North Melbourne was doing in terms of their rebuild as well. And, and West Coast, I think, tried to prolong things a little bit, and they got old. But you guys kind of, had some of the older players move out. I think you're probably going to see a few more move out this year after this year is up, possibly. But you got young, you took your lumps. You beat the Swans in round 4, which, I mean, you got that to hang your hat on. You beat one of the grand final teams. And it's kind of funny. You guys played your grand final back in, in late March,
Pretty
but it
much.
was, but it was, but
But
what positives came out of last year for you?
I mean, it was pretty hard, to be honest. I think a lot of us went into that season thinking, I know that we're maybe going to be on the edge of finals potentially.
Yeah.
I suppose the positives end up being that we end up getting a few more games into plays we maybe didn't expect to. We used 42 or 44 players last year, which is close
Yeah.
to unheard of.
Yeah.
And it's no secret, if you're a Richmond supporter, our frustrations at the high performance coaching staff and the injury management. We were decimated and we just couldn't compete. But so the silver lining was, I suppose, CB, that we got some games into some other players that we may not have necessarily gotten games into previously.
well, there's a couple of things. We had so a list of 42. The club had 8 ACL knee injuries,
Yeah.
3 in the BFL program, 5 in the senior program, and that's excluding hamstring injuries to Tom Lynch and things like that. So
Mhm.
it was injuries. You can never hang your head on injuries, but it was diabolical. But
Right.
with
Yeah.
Richmond, so I guess you're trying to work out what the mood is at Richmond, but you've got to go back 2 years to understand where we are now.
Yeah.
So if you looked at 2023, we had an unsettled year where the coach walked out on us.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
So that unsettled the playing group there, and the Willie Woney, a lot of pressure around the club. And then in 2024, we saw Brendan Gale, our CEO, leave to take up a position with Tasmania.
Right.
So we had
Right.
2 AFL seconded appointments in reality, because Damien Hardwick walked out and signed with Gold Coast within 6 weeks after claiming fatigue and what have you. And then we lost Brendan Gale, 2 key architects of our success. And we also last year, we moved on a line coach 4 weeks before the season went. And so what I'm saying is we've had a very unsettled 2 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And add injuries and things like that with a first year coach, we copped a bit of a perfect storm, I would suggest. So if you're asking what the mood is now, it's actually buoyant, because the internal belief within Richmond is we will bounce back quickly. And if
I
you
think
look
I think you will too.
if you look at the kids that come into clubs these days are ready to go, a lot of them.
Yeah.
If you look at Sheasel, for example, Horn Francis, you look at these kids, it's no longer you get a kid in, they need 3 years to develop, you bring them in. Some of these kids are ready to go. And in reality, with the outs, we traded 4. So we lost Baker, Bolton, Rioli, Jack Graham.
Right. Right.
Traded. But then we had another 4 players retire,
Yeah.
being
Dylan
Grimes, Martin, Pickett, and Sam Naismith. And Dustin Martin being obviously one of the greatest footballers ever to pull a pair of boots on. And then we further delisted 2 players. So massive off-season change, but now it gives the coach clean air to move forward with his program.
Right. Right. Now, were you surprised? Were you surprised that Dustin Martin did not go up to the Gold Coast to join them up there? Or were you guys thinking he's going to be done and he's going to go be Dustin Martin somewhere, and you're probably never going to hear from him again, because he's not somebody that's going to, we're not going to be seeing Dustin Martin, on the couch or on 360 or anything like that, or probably on the front bar. He's never going to be there.
So the reason why CB and I probably both laughed at the same time there is one of the big things that we've had very, very good mail on the whole time we've been doing this is Dustin Martin, due to one of the other guys' connections to him very closely. And there's been a certain journo who has, well, a lot of journos been saying for years, I'm talking 6-7 years, that Dusty's leaving, he's going to Sydney, he's going to the Giants. And then David Schwartz saying he's going to the Gold Coast. You can bet your house on it, 100% lock it in. And for the entire time, we were all flat out adamant he is not playing for the Gold Coast. It didn't make sense for him or them. Yeah. They're a young list. They've got a lot of talented players. He was realistically not going to play every game. His body was unfortunately shot. It never made sense. And then I don't know if this probably hasn't made the media over there yet, but Dimmer actually come out, might have been yesterday or the day before, pretty much saying that in his chats with Dustin, it was very evident that he loved Richmond and loved wanting the thought of being a one club player. So then that kind of puts a fire out on the fact that everyone was starting to say it was Dusty approaching them to play. Mm-hmm. And that wasn't really reality either. It was always Gold Coast asking the question, which is fair enough. But no, we were never worried about him playing for the Suns. No matter how dicey it looked in the media, we would always follow up with a tweet of our own saying, no, not happening. And, people would choose to believe it or not. But ultimately, Dusty will be a one club player, which is really, really good.
Yeah, and he's just was just absolutely phenomenal to watch during his career. Just pain in the neck if you're supportive of another one of the other teams. Come on now. But was the underwear commercial the only thing that he had ever done that was not just playing footy on the ground?
Pretty much. Or they did do
drinking scandals or
no. I meant in terms of any kind of publicity stuff, because I know he did an interview right after he retired that there was the special that was on Fox Footy, I believe, but he's not somebody that sought the limelight away from the game.
No.
Look, Ralph Carey's manager will say this was very tricky to deal with, but ultimately did very, very good things for his client. Mm-hmm. And Dustin's actually made a lot of money. He's got a lot of money invested in real estate and things like that as well. So I don't think Dustin will be short of $1 anytime soon.
Right. Yeah.
You're right. He won't be doing it. You can't see him doing anything media-wise. I know Fox Footy and Jack Riot ran a bit of a funny skit sort of showing that he's going to do media stuff with one-word answers just to squash some rumours. But I think he's had a couple of little side projects here and there that haven't been, I don't think they've been overly publicised, but he'll probably just do his own thing and we may not see or hear from him again, to be honest.
So he does, but he also is into mindfulness and mind health, body health, things like that. Yeah. So there's still avenues with which Dustin can go into.
Mm. That's true. And he can do that on his... That's something he can do on his own terms rather than having to, fit within the parameters of what, Fox Footy or SEN or, Channel 9 or Channel 7 are wanting him to do. So, as you mentioned, you had a lot of players that left this past year. I'm looking at your list. I mean, you got 12 players that have not yet played a single game at the highest level. And you've got 22 that have less than 70 games, on the list total. I mean, it's an extraordinarily young side. So, and as you said, one of the positives, if you want to call it that, was the fact that you got games into young kids that you didn't think you were going to get them into. And, in many ways, it kind of, it maybe helped you and helped the club to learn, okay, this kid's got some moxie. He's got something that we can build upon, or okay, this is a little worrisome with what this particular player is doing, that we may need to look elsewhere. And he may not be up at the highest club. He may be that playing the curtain raisers instead, rather than anything else. But looking at your list, I mean, it's you're very young. Presti is 32. Tom Lynch is 32, and you have to really wonder, what are you going to get out of Tom Lynch? I mean, he's broken down each of the last 2 years.
So one of the questions you had was the biggest impact on the club this year.
Yeah.
Right? So you got 2 questions which will have the one answer. which is
Mhm.
the biggest impact on the club this year. And I think which is the player we can least afford to lose.
I
Yeah.
think we've written the same thing inadvertently here.
Yeah, and it all comes back to Tom Lynch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Tom Lynch has he's effectively, there's two sides to this. His body hasn't had physical impact for 2 years, which means he could get some low.
I think you froze up on me there. So hopefully we'll get that unfrozen here in just a second. I'm going to go ahead
Football
and
this year.
okay. You froze up on me there for about 15 seconds. So you said Tomlich has not had any physical contact for about 2 years, and then you
Yep.
froze on me there. So
Apology. So Tom
okay,
Lynch he's been out of football for 2 years with
right,
2 long-term injuries. He's having his best preseason in years. He hasn't missed a
good,
session apart
good.
from concussion protocols last week.
Okay,
He's the one man that we need 16 plus games out of. If we don't have him as that linchpin to forward line, we got problems.
yeah.
Yes. Because previously we only got, I think, 8 games from the last 2 years.
Oh, we lost him 8 games in the last 2 years. Okay,
Correct. Yeah. So really,
hang on a second. Hang on a second. I did shower before this.
he's taken it personal, mate. He's really cramped it up. So, but yeah, look. So Tom Lynch as a 200 centimeter plus beast of a full forward.
Right.
He's the man that a lot hinges on, rightly or wrongly, in my
Yeah.
personal opinion.
Yeah. And it's and he is when he's healthy, he is pretty darn good. I mean, he had a great run up at the Gold Coast before he came down to Richmond. Um, but it's just I hope he can stay healthy
He'll
because
go on.
yeah.
He'll go on for another 2 years.
Okay.
And this is the last year of his big contract. So
Mhm.
beyond this point, we save money again. He'll be year by year. But the one thing, he's an on-field coach for the young blokes in the forward line.
Now
Yeah.
has he embraced that? Yeah, because I know sometimes some players may not be as as receptive to wanting to help out the young
Yeah.
guys. Are more worried about them getting themselves prepped and ready to go.
It's
He's
a
a
good,
former AFL
yeah.
captain.
It's a good point though, because one thing that we've said a bit on our show is that the role of our senior players has now changed substantially. Like it's now their time to pass on their knowledge and bring through these younger kids and get them prepared. Realistically, your Lynch's, Broads, Blostons, they're not going to be there for the next flag, unfortunately.
Right.
But it's now their turn to bring through the younger crop and teach them what they can teach them. And there's been some good training footage of Lynch working with Josh Smiley, who we picked up this year in the draft, helping him with some forward crafts. And yeah, as CB said, he's had a ripper pre-season so far with just the concussion. And I think one of our best signings this off-season is going to be Ben Serpell, who's our new high performance and fitness guy. He has a really, really sound understanding of the body movement, the workloads that go through different muscles and joints based on running technique and style. So a lot of our pre-season has actually changed with different, like, weird running techniques that as supporters we've never really seen before when you watch the training videos. But the players have really bought in, and just his understanding of what needs to be done to get these plays through. And then you start seeing Lynch getting a full preseason. Presti's had a full preseason with no injury. Yes, he's been held back a little bit for his own sake, but yeah, it's going to be vital to keep these guys in the park.
So Serpil just did a with the Richmond official Richmond football podcast, Talking Tigers. They had Ben Serpil on, and if you watch the Richmond training videos, you'll see guys running with their hands on their hips. And we've all been wondering for months, going, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
But when he explains it, it makes sense. When you have the ball and you are running, you're not running properly, are you? You're only using core and legs. So he's training the bodies to run while you're doing something with the football.
Okay.
So he's totally changing the biodynamics of what we do. But also he talks about running efficiencies with language we just haven't heard.
Well, I mean, I think it's stuff you've not heard. So maybe a situation there where you've got and I don't know the age of this coach that's doing this, but it sounds like it must be a younger coach who is trying new things to help. This new coach is trying to come up with new techniques to try to revolutionize the game. That for these younger players.
I missed the first part. Sorry, Michael.
Oh,
You might have heard him. Sorry.
yeah. It's I was thinking that it seems like maybe he's trying to bring a whole new mindset to and I don't know the age of this coach that's doing this, but imagine he's got to be a younger coach that is
Yeah.
that is trying these new techniques to try and revolutionize things and maybe jumpstart this club because I think and I think you guys have to be pretty excited about say 2027. You want to watch
Yeah.
2026 because you want to see these kids develop.
Yeah.
But in the back of your mind, you're thinking, where's my remote where I can hit the fast forward button and jump ahead to 2020, 2025, 26, 27. But no, you got to wait and go through another year of I don't want to say pain, maybe discomfort a little bit in terms of, maybe ladder position, but in the long
Yeah.
run, it's gonna benefit the club. And maybe by 2027, you start to see this club climbing its way up the ladder. But then you've got the other situation, the other elephant in the room that's going to come in, and it's this really, really large green elephant that's on an island south of you.
Yeah.
And what's
Mm.
going to happen there in terms of that club coming in? And I don't know, will Brendan Gale, work extra hard to see who he can poach from his old club, or will he just go, nah, I'm just going to let them be, and I'll go find players at these other 17 clubs in the league?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting. It's like I think we actually timed the bottom out well in some ways because in a couple of years, all of those picks that we've had access to last
Mhm.
year, they would all be heading towards Tasmania. So if you ever had to pick a time to bottom out, it's now. And obviously we'll
Yeah.
get a pretty good pick this year as well. I think the mentality of watching the football this year and next year just has to be different. You can't go watching and expecting wins as a Richmond supporter. It's just all about
Hmm.
the development and growth. I think the one thing we all want to see is a bit more of a game plan or a game style. It just felt
Yeah.
like last year everyone was running around almost as individuals in some weird way. There was no cohesion, no real plan or ball movement. So having someone like Blake Carousella back is probably going to help us quite a fair bit in that department. So as long as we see a game style and a path they're trying to take, I think everyone's going to be understanding that it's going to take a year or
Well,
two for these kids to catch up.
let me ask you a quick question here. That everybody running around for themselves, can you attribute that back to the fact that what would you say? You had 42 out of the 44 players that were on your list played an AFL game last year. I mean,
Yeah.
does that have something? Can you make a connection to that because you had so many players coming from so many different directions and different angles that one week, they're thinking I'm going to be in the VFL or maybe I'm not even playing this week, and then the next week, well, the guy that's ahead of me or the two guys ahead of me just went down with knee injuries, and now I'm my magnet's up on the board.
Yep.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, there was no one knew week to week if they were going to be playing or not, just because everyone was dropping like flies. But
Yeah,
the unfortunate byproduct of that is it just caused so much disconnect on the field. You could just tell. I mean, our backline was probably our least impacted area, and you could
yeah.
tell that they were working as a good unit, even though we lost a ton of games, obviously. But that was, I think, CB more to do with the lack of midfield pressure and lack of cohesion anywhere else. That there was just too much football going down there that you just couldn't stop it.
Well, we moved on a forward coach with a month to go, being David Teague. And there was obviously some talk around that as to why he moved on. But I think it was for the best for both David and the club at the time. So, no, I think, like I said, this is a reset year.
Hmm.
And okay, yeah, we lost some great players. Like Bolton was an enigma. He was terrific. Liam Baker very hard at it. But then you're replacing him with a Sam Lawler, who, by all accounts, is looking fantastic this preseason. Josh Smiley is 195, 196 centimetre midfielder.
Yeah.
That's key position height. So you're replacing him. Jasper Alga as a sneaky forward.
Hmm.
Harry Armstrong tore up the national championships as a forward. So I'm just, while we lost a bit, I'm very excited, very buoyant about what we're bringing. Now, the player to watch for us is a kid by the name of Jacob Bauer. So he'll be my tip
Hmm.
he'll take the second forward mantle
Okay.
or the third forward format. Just put a bookmark on him. He'll get his run at it. And apparently, like, he's fearless. He's a bit slight, but he's tall, knows where the goals are. He'll be a very good second, third forward. And the other one is Samson Ryan, apparently, has come on in leaps and bounds, the backup ruckman, who's been toweling up Nankervis apparently in the practice matches.
Which makes it then, possibly easier for them if, and I'm trying to think, is he out of contract this year? I think he is. In Curvis, I'm thinking he is. No, he's not.
It's close. Okay. It might be the following year, but he's got Tasmania ties as well.
Okay, yeah, he's done. He's done in 2026. Yeah.
Which might make sense.
They don't come in until 28, right?
Ryan for 3.
Yeah, till 28. So it could be just a little bit too late for him by then, possibly. But Jacob Bauer, I agree, will be one to watch, and Samson Ryan against popular belief, I'm well and truly in his camp. Ruckman take just that little bit longer to come on, so he's kind of now in that age profile where he'll start to be able to make more of an impact on things. So hopefully we can see some games from him this year.
And Seth Campbell, watch for Seth Campbell to get midfield minutes this year. The kid, he's like a little Trent Cotchin clone. He's like greased lightning, mate. If he gets around the ball, he could be really exciting.
So, what are the things that you've kind of alluded to what a successful year for the club is? What is, and I always have to ask about the other side of the coin. What are the things that you're going to be hoping not to see, but if you see them, you're going to realize, okay, this year is not going the way that we were hoping it's going to go. And I imagine the first one's probably going to be Cam Lynch's injury. Yeah. But beyond that, when it comes to, like the youngsters, I mean, what trepidations do you have? What worries do you have about, boy, we sure hope this really goes well?
Honestly, next 2 years are free hit. For us, it's just development. So
okay, well,
the expectation is if we can get 5 wins this year, that's actually a good year for us.
Okay.
Still maintains and you've got to remember, our system rewards poor performance in a way. So the lower you finish, the better your draft pick. We don't have a lottery. So it's not, it's really, before Tasmania comes in, it's not in our interest to win 8, 9, 10 games. Right. It's in our interest to win 4 to 5 to get improvement. Get that pick. If you've got pick 2 or 1 in the national draft, then you're getting the best kid again, and you're just restocking on talent.
Right. Yeah, and we saw, we've seen a couple teams that have, that have loaded up on youngsters over the last few years. We mentioned, North Melbourne. I think that was before we started recording. Yeah. I think, but that's a club right there. Yeah, even Gold Coast, has added so much young talent that, and I think the league needs that team to play finals. Now, as Richmond supporters, knowing that their coach walked out on your team, I'm sure that you guys are hoping that they fall just right flat on their faces and they don't win a damn game all season and Matt Rowell goes to Geelong. I'm okay with that too.
Is that a Geelong poster in the background there, mate? Not quite sure what I'm seeing.
It absolutely is. Yeah. Premiership jumper over here off to the side. I have the, what is it? The 07, 09 and 11 Premiership posters hanging on the ceiling above me here.
Nice.
I've turned a walk-in closet and a spare bedroom into where I record. I've got a desk in here, and I've got, I actually do all my schoolwork. I do all my schoolwork in here as well. So it's just a nice little cave to hide out in and do all this sort of thing. So yeah, but it's I mean, there's just this is, I don't have a door here anymore. I just have the flag here, and there's just a room out behind it there. So yeah.
I can't be mad at Damien Hardwick. I can't be mad at him. He got us 3 flags. I can't be mad at him.
That's fair. Do you wish he would have finished out that season though and then said, I am tired. I'm going to step away? Or was it better?
Michael's, you can answer how you want to answer. I'll just say, I feel he lied to us as a supporter base, and he lied to the club. And I think the AFL had a hand in it, and I've offended him again.
And let's be honest, I think didn't he lie to his wife too?
Oh, well, I'm not going down that path. But no, look, I think.
Sorry about that.
The hurt is he lied to us as a supporter base, and the AFL's had a hand in it, removing an AFL coach to go get their love child up and running. And that's probably where the tension's now.
That's a really good point.
Office.
Yeah. Because that club, that club is still, I think the AFL really would like to see Gold Coast play finals to get a return on their investment, if you will.
Yeah.
I remember in Queensland, it's a rugby town.
Right,
I
right.
know Brisbane just won the flag,
Yeah.
but in Sydney and in the northern markets of New
Mhm.
South Wales, Queensland,
Yep.
they're rugby-based territories.
Yeah.
So it's in their interest to have successful teams up north
Yep.
to compete with the Broncos, with the Gold Coast Dolphins, with the Townsville. There's a lot of competition,
Yeah. And historically, teams that have gone to the Gold Coast, like the Gold Coast Blaze for basketball, the soccer team, the rugby team, they've all folded. They've ultimately not worked because it's kind of more of a touristy destination. So,
right.
To CB's point, the dimmer move that doesn't happen in the time frame that it was perceived to happen in. That's a 1 to 2 year thing in the works because they've got to get rid of Stuart Dew and make sure. Like if Gold Coast had made finals that year, what would have happened? Like how could they have possibly given Stuart Dew the flick? And they were close to it. They were close to finals.
Well, let's.
So it's been orchestrated for a lot longer than what was portrayed, and I kind of just felt like they were kind of treating the Richmond supporters like idiots a little bit in that sense. But we'll always be eternally grateful to Dimmer for what he bought us. But yeah, it was just a bit of a. He could have done it slightly better, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was going to say, look what look what St. Kilda did to Brett Ratton. It's just they say they. I mean that
he's one of the most unluckiest coaches, Brett Ratton. He's not done much wrong.
No. And it's just, he signed, and that's one of the things that besides Collingwood never wanting to play in Geelong, that's from what they're the ones that have been the most vocal about it here this year. Yeah. It's I'll mention this to you guys as well, but it's one of the things that I as a fan who's looking at it from the outside, I understand it now. I acknowledge it, but it's just still one of those things that makes me scratch my head a little bit. For example, the Cats, they get a quote unquote home final. Let's say they're playing that home final against Richmond or against Collingwood. Well, you're going to play your home final at their stadium where 70% of the fans are going to be their fans in the stands, but it's your home final. It's one of those things that I just, you're not that team is ultimately, maybe they're getting rewarded monetarily, but they're not getting rewarded with their quote unquote home field advantage. And I've joked, I said, that if, the Philadelphia Eagles are playing in the Super Bowl tomorrow, and I don't even plan on watching the Super Bowl. I could care less about it. I'm going to be editing episodes of the podcast at that point in time. But, if the Philadelphia Eagles, they played the Washington Commanders, used to be the Redskins, in the NFC Championship game to go to the Super Bowl. And if the NFL had gone to the Eagles and said, yes, you're the home team, but since Washington has the bigger stadium, we're going to have you go play your home game in Washington. Eagles fans would have driven to Washington and burned their stadium to the ground before they let that happen. They would have destroyed it.
Do you know what makes the Big Footy Tigercast a great show? What's next statement.
Okay.
Richmond's so big, we don't travel to little shantytown home final venues, mate, in Geelong. You come to us. We're the big dogs.
And like I said, I understand it, but it's still just one of those things that that my American sport mentality has really, it's been slow to come around to wrap my head around that.
It is different.
It is, and they got, they actually did get one more home game back in Geelong this year. So that kind of did work out for them. So
if they just expanded the stadium at Geelong properly the first time, so they could fit everyone instead of doing 400 seats a year, they'd probably get a few more bigger games down there. But it just, unfortunately, I suppose if you're the AFL's perspective, it's just not commercially the right option. But if you're a Geelong supporter, absolutely, I can understand why they would be aggrieved by it. But I think they'll ultimately end up with a big enough stadium.
55,000, 100,000 to 110, and fitting corporates in.
Who says the corporates have to come?
Oh, mate.
I know the corporates say they have to come. I know. I get it.
I'm with you. I'm with you on that. Yeah,
same here. Nobody
needs to be watching a game of footy drinking a beverage out of a glass that has a stem on it.
Yeah. I like it. Yeah, fair call.
Yeah.
So you mentioned all the knee injuries, and who was the player that that left with the knee injury last year that you're hoping comes back and is able to contribute at the highest level this year?
Gosh, there's a couple. McKelty Lafau was having a wonderful season.
Yes, he was.
Until
Yeah,
he injured himself. There's a kid who's played a few senior games, but injured his knee. If you can actually look at the footage, he kicked a goal and did his knees. He kicked a goal. One of was Judson Clark.
Yeah.
There's another really high talented kid, in particular, and we lost our playing fullback at that stage as well. He did his knee. We actually, Michaels. I'm having an old bloke's moment. Who was our fullback that did his knee?
Was that Gibcus?
Gibcus did his knee, and the other one was Tyler Young.
Yeah, Tyler Young.
That's the one.
And so did Houghton did also. Taj Houghton did, but I think he did that at the VFL, if I'm not mistaken.
No, Taj is one of our draft recruits.
Yeah.
And
that's right. He's coming back in. Okay, he's coming back in.
Judson Clark was the one who did it at the VFL. So he tore his ACL, and then they sent him back out there. Would you believe?
Yeah, that's right.
Crazy. But
madness.
Yeah.
So
I said McKelty was probably the one, Michael's.
That,
when he comes back from his knee injury, that's probably the real one.
Yeah, and like I suppose to the point earlier, we realistically we wouldn't have seen McKelty Lafau play last year had it not been for the injuries.
Right.
So to kind of see him play and unearth him being a mature ager as well, that was definitely a positive. And he seems to be really good for the club. And I've got no doubt when he's fit and ready to go, he'll come back in and play a role for us.
And on the injuries too, Craig, Ben Serple, our new fitness guy, he specifically come out in the last podcast and said, we are taking a conservative approach with all the knee injuries. So he's a full believer in the full 12-month program.
Okay.
He's not rushing him back. There's no need.
Okay. I mean, it makes sense to me, but I just, Lafau was a heck of a lot of fun to watch. I think in many ways, and he went down. He went down in May, if I'm not mistaken.
It was in July. He took a specky that game.
Yeah. But it was, he had to be one of the you had no Tom Lynch, Dustin Martin was in and out, but he had to be one of those kids that you were just like, he's making it worth going to watch the games right now. Yeah, we got to get these kids the experience, but he was a hell of a lot of fun to watch. I mean, he just, he's coming from a whole different code, if I'm not mistaken. He played rugby before he transitioned. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Now, did he go back and also play? No, I guess he didn't this past year. Is he? Would they even allow him to do that, or would they say no? You're just a footy player now?
And he's really slimmed down too. Like he looks in ripping condition.
Yeah. Yeah, because rugby players are just built different from footy players. I mean, I think that.
Oh yeah.
I think it's safe to say that footy players are arguably the, not that I'm an expert on this at all, the fittest athletes out there, because of, well, at least the midfielders and that sort of thing, that the ground they're covering, the distance they're covering. It's just phenomenal. And
how many sports are out there, mate, where it's 360 degrees, where you can be hit from any stage?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And you have to cover, as much of a landmass as you do in that situation. It's just a massive, chunk of territory there. So, Does Adam Uze have a long leash as senior coach? I mean, they're not, while they're developing these kids, there's nobody on the board that's going to sit there and go, boy, we should be winning more games right now. We're going to, I saw Adam Uze have lunch with Brett Ratton once. We probably need to get rid of him as well now. Is it, does he have that, that long lead that's going to allow him to be the guy to develop these youngsters, so the payoff comes in a year or two, and that he's still the guy there?
Yeah, I think this year for me is the start of his actual coaching career. As weird as that sounds, because he was there last year, but he could do nothing of impact last year just based on the circumstances that happened.
Yeah.
And the other thing that some people forget as well is when we signed him on, just due to various circumstances, he had to inherit a couple of the assistant coaches that were still there in the Dim era because they were contracted. So he wasn't actually able to bring across his full team and who he wanted in place. And there was a little bit of conflicting, I suppose, methods and coaching styles within that team. And that's why, and it showed on the field. There was utter confusion everywhere. So this year, I would say, is almost a free hit, like CB said. But as long as we see game plan development and things moving forward, I don't think anyone expects us to hit 5, 6, 7 wins overnight. But you want to see them execute a proper game style and have conviction in ball movement and things like that. That'll be, if we go winless, which hasn't happened, I think, for 72 years, that would be a complete disaster. But I think, as long as we see some small baby steps forward, you'd want to start seeing some real big progress by that 2027 mark when all these young kids have got 40 to 50 games behind them.
Mm-hmm. And keep in mind, you've always got heroes on a keyboard. You're always going to have some warrior tapping away that what Richmond should be doing and what's wrong with Richmond. And mate, we're all tough behind a keyboard, aren't we? I mean, it's just rubbish. Just trust the process.
Yeah. And your first 5 games this year, they didn't do you a whole lot of favors starting out this year.
Oh, they did. No. There's one game, and Michaels knows where I'm going with this.
Are you
in one of them?
Are you thinking St Kilda?
They just played a practice match.
No, I know they had a lot of people banged up. Yeah,
Mason Woods injured. I actually got on, so I placed a future. I'm not endorsing gambling. However, I placed a futures bet on Richmond's first, because there's markets whether you think Richmond will win 2.5 games and under,
right,
2.5 games and over, and you can also try and predict the round where you think Richmond's first win is.
Okay.
And I got on $6. I got on 6s 2 weeks ago at Richmond to beat St Kilda.
Okay.
And plenty could go wrong for us in this off season still. So I'm not dancing on anyone's grave, but I think that's a pretty solid bet. I think our first will come in round 3.
I did see on Code Sports that they said that King's ACL was okay.
Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah. So that's I don't know about Woods, the extent of Woods' injury, but it sounded like he escaped an ACL injury. He's just got a bit of a strain, but so he should be back soon. But you got Blues in Port Adelaide and Brisbane and Fremantle.
Tough games.
Yeah,
tough games. Like Blues. I mean, that's your top 4 almost right there that we're playing straight off the bat.
Carlton have beaten us twice. Have beaten us twice in the first round matches in the last 12 years. Who are they? They're nothing. They're nothing.
They might smoke us this year, I reckon. Port Adelaide top 4. That's a tough game no matter whether it's home or away. Brisbane obviously just won the flag, so the only maybe saving grace to those games, and it probably won't make too much difference, is they're coming probably off a shorter pre-season than us. Maybe they'll ease into the season a bit more, but realistically, they are 3 or 4 quality sides, and I would be shocked if we got near them. To be fair.
Right. Yeah,
although Charlie Curnow's just gone down with injury again. Not that we wish injury, but if we're any chance to do anything against Carlton, we'll need miracles.
We're down Noah Bolter, so if they're down, Curnow probably cancels each other out.
Yeah.
But look at the bright side, though. You got Bolter signed through 2032.
If we can keep him out of pubs.
So, if everybody stays healthy, who do you think is likely to be a couple players who are likely to find themselves in the position where their magnet is going to have their name written on it in ink rather than in pencil?
I want to see, to CB's point, you want Jacob Bauer to be locked in for 22 games. Kane McCall is probably another one who showed some signs early in the year last year. Then he was sub a few times. I'm not sure if it was just a fitness thing or not, but he's put on some serious size, especially on his arms, coming back this pre-season. He'll be another good midfielder. And Jack Ross is probably the other one too, that before, I think he missed about 14 weeks last year with an injury, but prior to that, he was really starting to look very settled in the midfield. And I know there's been a bit of an experiment playing him on the wing, but it seems like that in an inside midfield spot is where he does his best football. But then the only way that happens is by dislodging a Taranto, a Prestia, or a Hopper. I'm not fully sold that we can play those 3 in the midfield at the same time, just from a balance and speed perspective.
Right.
But yeah, so you might see someone like a Ross step in there, or as CB said earlier, Seth Campbell would be another good one to put in there just for some extra speed. Morris Rioli Jr. Yeah, as like Uze kind of has put the heat on these guys who are in their second and third year, that it's now their club, it's now their time to step up, and they're the ones we're probably looking to lock themselves into the side to for us to see some progression.
Yeah, you got me. Seth Campbell and Morris Rioli Jr. are the two. If we can get those two to play full seasons, good times ahead.
Okay. So, couple questions here before we jump into the handful of trivia questions that I have for you. What is the bold prediction that you want to make about the club this year, and maybe about the league, that people are just going to kind of go, whoa, that is rather bold. I mean, I kind of gave you mine off air, I think, as we were starting out there, and who I thought might be playing finals this year, which could possibly happen, but probably isn't going to happen. But I'd kind of like to see it happen. But and then also, so like the bold prediction for the club, and then for the league itself, and then at the end of the year, what does the headline in the paper say about Richmond Tigers 2025 season, when their season wraps up?
I reckon it'll be in relation to I put down that the Tiger Cubs have shown some bite. I think maybe not so much at the start of the year, because obviously it's a huge transition from under 18 football to AFL football.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm hoping by the end of the year that we're starting to see some really good impact from Sam Lawler, and probably Josh Smiley in particular. And more so because there was obviously 4 or 5 other clubs that passed over Josh Smiley in that draft, where at one point he was touted as the number 1 pick. So I'm hoping to see him sort of grab the team by the scruff of the neck and say, all right, let's go, boys, and show some really good leadership qualities. From a league,
we'll never know.
We'll never know.
Yeah.
I think the league spook's got him, mate. They've cut him off.
Yeah,
They've said enough of you, son.
Exactly. Yeah, he's gonna. Dimma's gonna leave to take the job in Tasmania.
I think my headlines aren't real sexy. I just think it's really the expectation of whether we win a spoon or we don't win a spoon, and headlines will be written around that about how we achieved what we did.
Right.
And I think Sam Lawler or Josh Smiley to win the Rising Star Award for the league. I think they're 2 very good possibilities to occur.
I like that. Okay. So, what were you, Michaels, before you decided to run out on us there real quickly?
My computer hates Zoom, and I don't know why. It just freezes randomly.
Sorry about that.
No, it's fine. It's done it before, but I don't know why it's doing it. So yeah, for club-wise, I'd love to see Josh Smiley really take our team by storm. Just given the amount of clubs that passed on him before he got to pick 6, I think he's got not a bit to prove, because we know he's going to hopefully be a good player. But I'd love to see him and Lawler be the leaders for our young brigade by end of year. And from the AFL perspective, I really think we need a new administration. I'm not sold on Dylan and Laura Kane whatsoever. No. They have not done themselves any favors in 2024.
Okay, Laura Kane,
they've done or not done. And if you were to do a fan survey league wide, an actual genuine one, not one of the fluff pieces that the AFL put out saying the game's in the best state it's been in, you will find that not many people are happy with what they're doing at all. So yeah, I would love to see a change. And funnily enough, we all thought that for a long time that Brendan Gale would have been the best person to do the job, but we can also appreciate and understand why he didn't take the job, because it's perceived to be a bit of a boys' club. It's at AFL House, and I don't think he would want to be a part of it. But yeah, just not a fan of some of the rule changes and all the constant changing of the game. Just leave it alone. Just let it be.
Okay, that's certainly fair enough. That's certainly fair.
Laura Kane has been diabolical. Talk about woke world and not reading the tea leaves about where fans. So the biggest feedback, the biggest number 1 issue right now that people are seeing the game is actual, ironically, after what I just said a while ago, is gambling advertising at games on TV and watching broadcasts. It's a real issue for a lot of people watching a game. They hate it. And you can't watch a game without having odds on blah, 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 and blokey shit. And yeah, it's just, there are so many issues with the game, and they're ignoring what the fans are saying. And then they're telling us what they're telling us what we think. And we're going, no, that's actually not how this works.
So is the gambling aspect of it is the impact of gambling on the game, is it a smaller impact than maybe the powers that be with the league are thinking that it is, and that they're trying to lure more people into it?
Mate, I'll tell you now, it's so easy to get a gambling app on your phone if you're a teenager.
Yeah.
I think they know the impact, but the dollars that the sponsorship brings to it means they're probably not going to, stamp it out.
Well, I mean, wasn't there a discussion about, I'm not sure what app it was, but was it something about 16-year-olds or younger not even being able to use like smartphones or something like that in Australia? I thought I saw something about that.
Oh, there's been social
Like
media.
social media,
social media around X and other platforms, and
right.
So there's a lot of debate about censorship and that, but I'm sure I'm not even going to go to politics, but I'm sure the US are having the same debates about censorship things. So it's just a thing that's going on. It's a worldwide conversation that Australia's involved in.
Right.
That's all I'm saying.
With the rules of the game, Craig, out of interest, with baseball and NFL, when's the last time a noticeable rule change has been introduced to those sports? Like, are they tweaking rules each year, or is it you might not see something for 10 years? Like, what are they doing?
I mean, the NFL always makes little adjustments here and there. The Major League Baseball, like I said before, I was a much bigger baseball fan than I was a football fan, and I have not watched one moment of baseball in over 6 years, and I was a massive baseball fan. I think Major League Baseball is destroying itself. I think it is, it's performing a very slow self-immolation. One, there's no salary cap in the game. So you have the Los Angeles Dodgers, the New York Mets, the New York Yankees, all who have payrolls which are north of $350 million for the team.
No one's worth that money. No one's worth it.
Well, and then you have players, you have teams like the Cleveland team or Miami or Pittsburgh or Kansas City, whose payroll is a combined like $90 million. So it's not a level playing field. It's one thing that the AFL does right. It's one thing that the NFL does right. So the NFL, the team in Los Angeles, has as much opportunity to build a quality team to compete for a Super Bowl as does the team in Green Bay, Wisconsin. I mean, Green Bay is a town that's about half the size of Geelong. It's about 120,000 people in Green Bay. They have as much of an opportunity to put a championship team on the field as does Los Angeles or the teams in New York or Chicago. And
Cheeseheads are a loyal base, aren't they?
And baseball, going back to that real quickly, one thing that they had happens, we had a huge cheating scandal back in 2018 with the Houston Astros that they got caught cheating during the course of the season, and the players got suspended for a few games here and there. I think they should have been kicked out of the league for the rest of their careers. There had been a precedent set during the World Series back in 1919, where you had a number of players who basically who lost the series on purpose and were banned from the league for the rest of their lives. They changed, they've implemented a couple new things. They're trying to speed the game up, and it's not what baseball is. Baseball is some people call it, it's kind of like watching test cricket in a way, because it's kind of there's no clock on test cricket necessarily, other than for lunch break and things of that nature. But baseball games, and unfortunately it's just where our attention spans are now. Baseball games sometimes could be 3 hours long. But the stories that the announcers tell, it's kind of like the cricket announcers. They weave these great stories into what they're talking about, and it's just part of the game. So they're trying to speed the game up. So they have that that like a pitcher has to throw the ball like with once they get the ball back in the hand within 10 seconds, it's fine, whatever. But they have also changed. A lot of teams started using, like if you're thinking about a batter in cricket who could only hit the ball to the side of the ground that he is standing on. So if you had a right-handed hitter, he could only hit it basically this way off to his left side this way. He couldn't hit the ball the opposite way. Okay. So what baseball had started doing is, as you sometimes see with cricket defense, where you'll overload the defenders in one area. Like when you see all the guys that are lined up like 6 feet away from the batter, that are all like this, waiting for it, to come knock their teeth out. But from just a few feet away. But baseball said, no, you cannot have that extra defender on the other side of the field where this guy hits the ball all the time. it's not a good look for the game. We want that area to be open, and to allow this guy to hit the ball that way. And it's like you're rewarding bad hitters.
So,
That
so you talk about rule change. So I'll give you back in the good old days.
uh-huh.
We didn't have 666
Right, right.
zones.
Stand.
So what coaches? So what coaches
Sorry.
had to do? Well, but what? So scoring statistically has decreased from 1967, Michaels, to now.
Yeah.
Scoring's been on a decrease, right?
You mean
So
we can't just blame that? We can't just blame that all on Russ Lyon?
No, we're blaming this on
partially.
Stephen Hawking, ironically, right? But so 666 stand. These rules that have come in haven't actually enhanced scoring. So the aesthetics of the game, it looks sexy. The ball's flying between the arcs.
Right.
Hasn't impacted the scoring. So before zones, say for example, I needed to score and I had to find a way to open up my forward line. You used to be able to get 2 half-forward flankers and slide them onto the wings, and you'd only have 4 forwards in there. So you'd have more congestion around the ball trying to force it out and open it up. Now we're automatically starting with 12 people in a 50-meter arc, 12 people in a 50-meter arc. So ironically, you've actually congested the scoring, and you've disallowed coaches to make moves that can impact a game, when you're trying to win it or you're trying to hold on,
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah. But what would I know, mate? I'm just a bald-headed flog who's only been watching it for about 50 years.
Yeah.
So
well, I'm just a bald-headed flog that's only been watching it for about 9 years. So,
but if you wonder what the change some of the rules,
that's a very fair point. Yep.
Yeah.
So, you ready for some Richmond trivia before we go?
You asked one controversial question. I'm dying to hear Michael's answer.
Okay, go ahead.
You wanted to make us a futures prediction on the club best and fairest for this year.
Yeah. Who's going to be? That's right. Yeah.
I got Tim Taranto.
I've got Jacob Hopper.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I don't mind it. Ooh.
Yeah.
He's had a good preseason, to be fair.
He's had a preseason in years, and he's a far superior footballer to Tim Taranto. He's the best midfielder, pure mid we've got, apart from Dion Prestia. He's the second best pure midfielder we've got. If he's fit, he will have a very, very good year.
Here, I'm going to go off the board for both of you. I hope for your sake there, CB, that Tom Lynch is your best and fairest.
If Tom Lynch wins our best and fairest, we will have won 7 or 8 games.
Which is not a good thing, I guess, in the long run.
Well, depending on how you look at it, I suppose, yeah.
Yeah.
But that would be nice.
Yep.
If this occurs, you probably need to not follow me on social media. I could be unhinged.
Okay, so I've got, I think 7 or 8 questions here for you before we wrap up. So, and this is a mixture of stuff that happened last year and other things throughout recent history with the club. So, who led the club with an average of 25 disposals per game in 2024?
Not many of them played. It would have to be Taranto, I guess.
Yes,
he probably played the most games.
Yep.
Well, I was going to say, based on with injuries,
it was Taranto. Yep, it was him. Because I was going to say the next closest would have been Jacob Hopper at 23. He played 12 games. Rioli had a little over 23, but he played all 23 games.
He was my other answer. I was thinking was Rioli.
Okay, who led the club with 111 tackles last year?
Mansell.
I'll say Hopper.
Toby Nankervis.
Did he?
Oh, we should have known that.
Yeah.
His defensive pressure acts. He's a king on it.
Yeah. Yep.
Well done, Yank.
Yeah. All right. This is my favorite stat in the game here, okay? This player who played 21 games for the club last year, he led the club with 8.05 1%ers per game.
Oh.
1%ers.
I love that. I love that stat.
Yeah.
No, we have not mentioned his name tonight.
Okay.
1%ers.
We have not mentioned his name tonight.
Can we ask? Can we phone a friend? Can we ask what area of the ground? Defense, midfield, offense.
Well, the way he is listed is that he would be listed in both the midfield and up forward.
Midfield 4.
It can't be Morris Rioli Jr. or Bolton.
Ryan, Mansell would have been the other one I would have thought, but
Ben
split
Miller.
it.
Paul,
Ben Miller.
No, he's full back.
Well, they
They-
have him listed. They have him listed as a forward and a ruck. That's why
Really?
I said that. Yeah, on Footy Wire they have him listed as a forward and a ruck. So that's why
that's
I said
interesting
that.
because he's quite a polarizing player. I'm all for Ben Miller, but
Yeah.
that's actually really good to hear.
He was our best one-on-one player, best one-on-one defender, I think,
From
last year.
spoiling, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, here's our next one. This is where we're going into a little bit of history. Then, who are the 3 Tigers coaches to win more than 100 games in their careers with Richmond?
Hardwick,
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Tom Hafey.
Yep.
Geez, I'd have to say for longevity, well, it won't be Hughes. It has to be. It's either Minogue or Dyer. I'll go with Dyer.
That'd be correct. Yep. Jack Dyer, 134. Yep.
Yeah,
I was gonna say if you don't get that one right, you gotta change your handle. Yeah.
Yeah. so I'm batting at about 40% on the answers here. So I'm struggling. I'm in struggle city
That's okay.
here.
That's okay. Now, throughout the history of the club, have the Tigers won more games at Docklands or at Princess Park?
I'd say Princess Park, surely.
It has to be Princess Park or Optus Oval. It has to be.
Okay. At
We are diabolical.
They've won 41 games at Docklands and 44 games at Princess Park.
Oh,
There you
so
go.
that's more than I would have thought, to be honest. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I'm back. Back.
That's I know that's them playing 41 games too many there, right?
Yeah. It's funny. In fan surveys, Richmond fan surveys, we actually hate Etihad. We hate going there. The MCG is our spiritual home. We actually despise going to that ground. Yeah.
No, that's why I've got a couple of episodes that I actually did a little extra editing, and I even was describing the windswept deserts and such, and I uploaded all sorts of sound files with the wind blowing and that sort of thing, and the gurgling water crossing the river and such, and just
you call it Road Warrior, right? The movie. We call it Mad Max down here.
Yeah.
That's pretty much us heading to Etihad. That's our support base.
Well, and the funny thing is, it's one of those things that when I do come there, that I actually want to make the walk. I actually want to make the walk from Punt Road to Docklands and kind of record myself as I'm doing it, so I can then put it out there and say, "See, it can be done."
I went and saw last night. I went and saw Luke Combs at Etihad Stadium.
Okay.
And
did you do a shoey?
What's that?
Did you do a shoey?
No, he did.
I know. That's why I'm asking.
It was terrific for the record. So the train ride from Punt Road Station to Etihad is about what, 2 minutes, Michaels?
Yeah,
if that.
If that.
And we hate it.
Right? Yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah, I guess that's why I wonder. And I did check. You guys are only scheduled to play 2 games there this year.
Yeah, it's just part of the contracts. Yeah,
too many.
But at the end of the day, you've got to get out of that mentality as a footy club. It should be the old anywhere, any place, any time. Yeah. It's just how it is.
Yep. Okay. Who is the oldest player to play a game for the Tigers in the 21st century?
That being this century, yeah?
Yes, this century, yes.
All right.
Dusty will be close.
No. We've had Jack and Trent were older.
Were they? What about how old was Edwards?
Yeah, Edwards. Yeah, Edwards retired about 33. Basher Hooley was about 33.
How old was Ben Cousins?
Oh, you know what? Hang on a second. I lied to you about this 21st century. I apologize for that. Let me rephrase that question, okay? That's a terrible question. The 21st century part should have not have been there. I should have said a year for it. It was in 1999. It was David Cloak. I completely butchered that question, guys. Sorry about that.
So,
that was awful on my part. So we're going to throw that question out, and we're going to put it on the ash heap of history.
To be honest, because I would have answered, if it had been the previous century, I would have answered either David Cloak or Kevin Bartlett. Would have been the two.
Yeah, and there's only a difference of like 40 days between the two of them. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yep. Yeah. Okay, so I absolutely butchered that question. My humble apologies on that one.
Right.
Okay. These two players were the only Tigers to average more than 400 meters gained per game last year.
Daniel Rioli.
Would Jaden Short have done? It
That's
has to be a
That's
defender.
one. That's one.
Jaden Short is.
He's one. Yep.
And it wasn't Rioli.
Was not Rioli.
Wow.
It is another defender.
Has to be a defender. It's where the ball lived. Would Vlosten have averaged?
Yes.
Vlosten wouldn't have averaged that many, would he?
It can't be
Or
Brody.
Bolter. What about Bolter with kicking the ball?
I would go with your previous answer.
Vlosten.
Yep.
Yeah, Tigger.
470 and 408.
You
Yeah,
remember,
like
see, the interesting thing is it's hard for us to answer this quick because we started the year off okay, and by the end of it, we were just hot dog poo. We were no good. So it's sort of
Vlosten's interesting. Yeah. I mean, it was just a probably process of elimination, but
yeah,
that's good.
Okay, last one for you here. Who led the club in goals kicked per season more times, Jack Rewalt or Matthew Richardson?
I think Jack's got him shaded.
It's got to be Jack. Richo kicked more goals on the MCG more than any other player in the history of the game.
I think it's only been recent that Rewalt passed as well, if he did.
Well, Jack had no competition for about a decade, so surely.
Jack Rewalt 12 times, Matthew Richardson 13 times.
Oh, I knew it was very, very close.
He finished as a winger. He wasn't even a forward.
Oh, very close.
So, gentlemen, as we wrap up here, where can people find the Big Footy Tigercast? And I know that you're up on YouTube, but where can they find it? What are your socials if people want to follow you? And I will put these up in the show notes as well, and encourage you to, encourage people to check it out. Even if you happen to be a supporter of another club, because you get insight about your upcoming opponents and that sort of thing by watching these types of things as well.
Yeah, so we're on YouTube, like you said, Big Footy Tigercast. We're on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, Facebook as well. We generally do a Monday night show, usually about 8:30 p.m. Melbourne time, and we'll talk about the game coming up and about the game from the previous week. Mm-hmm. And this year as well, we're actually going to start doing a midweek show as well, where we get an opposition supporter on to talk about the game coming up to get their perspective and better insight. Like we take it pretty seriously when we talk about the opposition on our Monday night shows, but you can't beat the insight of a proper supporter from the other club because they know it inside and out. Sometimes we'll take the piss from the other team, but it'd be better to get a proper opponent's perspective. But on all the socials, just the same handle, Big Footy Tigercast. So
okay, well,
yeah,
would it not be un-Australian if you did not take the piss out of supporters of another club? I mean, isn't that
absolutely?
That's a rule, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. Okay. And I think that's what people enjoy. So. Yeah, you don't want to take it too seriously.
Yeah, exactly. Well, gentlemen, before we wrap up, any last words of wisdom that you want to pass on before we finish up for this evening?
That's you, CB. You're the man. You're the man of wisdom.
I'll give you one to contemplate and research, Craig.
Okay.
In Australian rules football, we have a thing called Victorian bias, #Vic bias, where interstate clubs whinge and complain about Victorian clubs getting preference, shall we say, preferential treatment, and how it's all geared towards Victoria. But I just want you to think about this. Last year, the top four was the Swans, Lions, Cats, and Giants. Sorry, right. So 2 years ago. No, it was last year. Sorry, yeah.
It was last year. 2 years ago, the Cats didn't get in.
This year, I'm tipping the top four is going to be Brisbane, Fremantle, GWS, and Carlton. I think Freo is going to be your bolter, right?
Okay.
Football's an evolutionary sport.
Yeah.
The system rewards, you go down for a bit, get your draft picks, you come back up.
Yeah.
Vic bias isn't a thing, but bad management and bad leadership is a thing.
Yeah.
So I think, I think it's a nonsense. And the interstate clubs get academies and things like that. They get a hell of a lot of things, right? A lot of other little sweet tidbits that Victorian clubs don't get.
Is the trade-off with the academies though the fact that the longer established Victorian clubs have the father-son stuff coming along. I mean, it's
All clubs get that. All clubs
right,
get that.
but I mean, for example, Gold Coast is not going to, they're not going to, you're not going to be, they're not going to be drafting a 7-year-old into their side right now. If they
No,
have,
maybe
yeah,
not. But
yeah,
that's but look at Brisbane get them now.
yeah,
Keep in mind there's eight clubs in Victoria in a
right,
city of 8 million, and only 2% of kids get drafted. Keep in mind the numbers are 2% get drafted.
yeah,
8 clubs in Melbourne, 2 clubs in Sydney with a population of 8 million
yeah,
plus.
yeah.
2 clubs, so they've got some pretty sweet little benefits going on. So Vic bias, I don't buy into that argument at all.
And then from a Richmond perspective, for those watching who do follow the Tigers, just enjoy the year for what it is. Don't have any great and outlandish expectations. Just enjoy the young kids playing football, and hopefully we can see some positivity heading towards 2026.
That's certainly fair. And I hate to say it, but there are actually 9 clubs in Victoria. We don't want to forget about this
Yeah,
one.
we don't really count. Well, look, we don't really count North Melbourne. We just
No, I
No,
I
North
meant
Melbourne.
I meant this one. I meant this one.
no. No, we don't travel to Etihad, mate. We don't look further down the Hume Highway, mate.
Yeah. Have you guys ever driven past Werribee?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, just checking.
Not by design, mate. Not by design.
No, I've been in Geelong a couple of times.
Okay.
So-
Okay.
I need to throw things at
it.
Okay. Well, yeah, you guys are going to Tasmania this year. I know that. I did see that.
yeah, I guess the Kangaroos. I think we played them down there.
Yep.
Which would be
Well, that would have
it'd
been
be cold. It'd be cold down there. It'd be horrible conditions, but
yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
it is
Well,
what it is.
Michael's CB, I appreciate you guys taking time out of your Sunday morning to sit down and chat. I mean, this was a great deal of fun. It's a great pleasure to meet the both of you. I hope we can do this again in the future. If you would be interested in doing that, because I love
sure.
doing these previews each year. So this is just an awesome connection to have made, and I appreciate your time, gents, and I wish you all the best. And ladies and gentlemen, that is my Tigers preview. And gentlemen, I want to thank you. And like I said, I will put all your socials up in the show notes as well. So give them a follow if you haven't. Subscribe to them over on YouTube as well, folks.
No, thank you very much, Craig. Thanks for the invite. We really appreciate it. And
You bet.
More than happy to
You
come
bet.
back anytime.
Absolutely. Fantastic. All right, Michael, CB17. Gentlemen, I truly appreciate you taking time to sit down and chat with me about the Tigers. This was a great discussion. I've loved sledging on the Tigers and Tigers fans a little bit since Dema was complaining about having to make the long trips over there to Marvel Stadium. But you guys were just absolute gentlemen this evening. I know we had a couple glitches with connectivity with our communications, but we're 15,000 kilometers apart. That's going to happen. But folks, remember, you can find everything about my website or everything about the podcast at my website, ayankonthefooty.com. If you want to reach me there, you certainly can. You can also reach me via email at ayankonthefooty@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you. If you want to help out the podcast, you can do that in a couple of ways. One, doesn't cost you anything other than a couple minutes of your time. If you enjoy the show, I do hope you'll take a few moments and leave a review for the podcast over at my website. There's a leave a review button there. You can tell folks if you love the show, even if you think there could be improvements to the show, tell me what you think, okay? Because this is not a perfect podcast. I try to make it as entertaining and as fun as possible, but there are certainly things that could probably be improved from time to time. But feel free to reach out over there and let me know. And I do hope if you enjoy the show, you can share it with your friends and tell them about this crazy American who loves your game. If you want to help out the podcast also, you can click on that Buy Me a Coffee button or check out my store page over on Redbubble. They do manufacture their products right there in Australia as well. So if you order a sticker or something like that, they can ship it to you right from Australia. Now, folks, if you need to speak to somebody, please reach out. Please talk to them. And it's been a trying week for a lot of people. We've seen the loss of a number of big names in the footy world. I'm sitting here, and at full disclosure, I'm feeling a little bit sorry for myself. I feel awful for my wife. As I said at the outset, we were trying to get through her last radiation treatment before we had to make an ultimate decision about to do with this our sweet puppy. But alas, that was not to be. But if you need to talk to somebody, please don't hesitate to reach out. The world's a much better place with you in it. I'm dealing with these things myself right now. I'm trying to find some folks that I can talk to. My head has not been in a great place over the last few months with just everything that's going on. I'm trying to get it there, but I would be lying if I said that it wasn't in a bad place, because it kind of is. And I've been compensating with a lot of the music that I've been listening to. And, I had a good discussion with my sister today, who, she is somebody who, um, she is always the glass half full theory. Her glass is always overflowing. She didn't like my response when I told her that my glass has always had a leak in it. Uh, Not half full, can never get it half full. Just with everything that's going on. Yeah. Enough about that. So I'm sorry about that, Tiger supporters. It's just been a really, really trying day and a really, really trying couple of months. But I'm looking forward to seeing your club make marked improvements this year. And I think 2026, 2027, going to start to see you working your way right back up the ladder. And if Tom Lynch has a great year this year, as CB17 was hoping, who knows? Anything could happen. You could win 5, 6, 8 games. Okay. Now, folks, again, I hope you'll subscribe to the website. Get on my socials. Give me a follow there as well. Follow me over on YouTube as well. And ladies and gentlemen, as always, may your dribble kick never hit the post. I will catch you later. And this has been episode 371 of A Yank on the Footy. Don't forget that you can reach me at yank_on X, at ayankonthefooty@gmail.com, a Yank on the Footy podcast over on Facebook. You can give me a follow on Facebook as well. You can find me on LinkedIn as well on Instagram as well, folks. And until next time, cheers and goodbye.